So, you did the drawings, and well, it didn't go fantastic, so the grades on them are not your actual grade. It's the grade you would have gotten if we would have just based it on the rubric. Anyone who has a grade under a passable grade, you'll actually have a 5.5 minimum. That's the lowest you could have gotten for this. If you have sufficient enough grade, everyone gets 2 extra points. So if your grade says a 4 on the drawing, you actually have a 6. And if you have an 8, you actually have a 10, for example. If you have a 2, with 2 points you get a 4. But I just said the minimum is a 5.5. So if you had like a 2, you actually have a 5.5. Yes?
You don't have a 10 and then...
No, you can't have it. No one had a 10 for drawing in general, but no. It's the max. So, after everyone has this grade, what I want to do is actually go and look at a drawing how it should have been for maximum points. Yes?
You have the 2 points bijgedaan.
No, the point, the actual grade, if everyone can keep it attention on me, and that means me. I know you want to ask questions, but not right now. So, once again, the grade on the actual drawing itself is the grade you should have gotten if we would have kept to the rubric and been very strict. But I just said you get 2 bonus points and a minimum of a 5.5. So if you have 3 on the drawing with 2 points, you'd only have a 5. No, you have a minimum of a 5.5. So everyone has a passable grade. Yes.
Like if you got a 6,
you actually have an 8. Yes.
While Kevin is handing out the drawings, while Kevin is handing out the drawings, there's just something I want to say about the workbook on the iPad. I hope you all realize that I can see how far you are with all those exercises. And I'd like to see some growth in the amount of exercises performed. It is very, very good to practice with the exercises. Also, this was homework. So I really expect you guys, when it's on the board, and I forgot to check if it was actually, I think it was awesome, but if it wasn't, then my mistake. I do trust that everybody's made a fifth and fifth, but make the exercises. I know that some of you have made the exercises on paper. That's why I came in to check who made it on paper. Can I see hands of people who've made the exercises on paper?
Yes.
Yes, I have made it on paper. Really?
Not all.
Not all. You also made a lot here, right, guys? Yeah? So, I'm not gonna, punish anyone for not doing it, but from after the fall holiday, I trust that everybody has practiced working with the iPad, and that if there is homework on the iPad, I will only have to look at beautiful green marks and percentages of up to 100%. Okay, is that clear for everybody? Yeah? Ed has a question.
Can you talk about your grade?
Grade, yeah. What do you want to know about your grade?
Now, because I have most the same as that one.
Yes.
And I also write a magnification.
I think that, Ed, you need to just wait. Mr. Nato is going to walk you through the rubric again. And then if you have anything other to say, I think Mr. Nato will give you another moment.
Exactly.
Not in this lesson, yes? Is that true, Mr. Nato?
Yes. Right now I want to go through the drawing globally, and then I want to go through the rest of the theory that goes for the test, because you have the test after the fall break. As it says the 29th of October, you'll actually have the test for the entire chapter. So I want to be able to at least go through the drawing, explain what you should have done, and then go through some theory so you can actually ask me questions like what anything you still have a hard time with. Yes, Kevin?
Does the grade count for you?
The grade counts, but like I said, the grades on the paper aren't the grades that I have noted down, which we will use for the actual combination grade. So, yes, one more question.
Well, when you have a 5.5, do you...
You get a 7.5.
Like...
That is your grade is actually a 7.5. Alright, so, a lot of people with the drawing, for starters, made it too schematical. So they actually made straight up boxes, which isn't true. A cell isn't a straight box with perfect lines. You need to make a schematic drawing, and then the lines need to be straight and clear. Of course, it shouldn't be just sketching around, but it needs to be hand drawn. So you should never use your a triangle like this only to make the lines for the naming. So, secondly, the naming should always be on the right side. All of it on one side. If it isn't, it's not correct. Yes, Ed?
But in the workbook, they said the drawing rules, there isn't that you don't have to do
Draw straight lines.
Yeah, you just draw straight lines. And
yeah, a straight line, but a straight line isn't. A straight line is, they mean a straight line out of your hand. So if I draw a cell, they mean I should draw it like this and not like sketching kinda. That's what they mean. That's what they mean with straight lines. Yeah, that's what I mean. That is too schematic. That's just a box, and a cell is obviously not a straight up box. So, let me just go through all of it, and that should at least answer quite a lot of questions. Secondly, text. In the bottom, of course, the date, name, magnification, what type of drawing it is, schematic in this case, a drawing of a plant cell, and then, in this case, the species, which was elodie. There's also points to get for scale. Scale is not the same as magnification. Scale has to do, in the drawing, the chloroplasts are, in combination to the cell, are about that size, not super big. So if you have chloroplasts, for example, this size, you have, and these are chloroplasts. Obviously that's not correct, because they're not that big. Second, a lot of people had chloroplasts all over the cell, because that's what you saw. But you have to realize what you're seeing is a 3D cell. And how a cell is built is, it's a box, a layer, and inside is, the central vacuole, and that's like, imagine if around this balloon there was a cell around it, the cell layers. So if, for example, I would put it in here, so we would have the vacuole in the center, and then around it there's fluids, and then up to the sides, pushed up to the sides, is the cell wall and the cell membrane, and then the chloroplast would be around this area. So it's 3D, so there's chloroplast above it, beneath it, on the sides. So what you're actually seeing when you think the chloroplasts are in the center is just the layer on top. So you need to remember that you're looking in 3D. That's why you have to magnify and get the right sharpness, so to say, so you don't see too much overlap of higher layers or layers below. So remember that in the future when you have to draw a cell again. So, you don't have to do this, but seeing that a cell was never a solo place, you could always set aside, well, there was a cell here and a cell there, so you get an idea, well, it wasn't a single located cell, so it jumps out more. So, naming on the right, straight lines for the naming, hand drawn, the right scale for all the parts, information in the bottom, and if you have all of this, in this type and the right scale and the right drawing looks also correct, and you've named everything you could have seen and named it correctly. If you didn't see a nucleus, you don't have to add a nucleus. So that's fine. So if that didn't happen, didn't happen. If you'd had a hard time seeing the central vacuole because there was a layer of other cells above it, that's also fine. As long as the stuff that you name is on the right side and named correctly. Yes?
Well, for mine was, I think you marked it wrong. I draw the nucleus half, or two cells are, yeah.
Well, like I said, there will be some time at the end part of the lesson to actually still come to me with questions, but once again, there's a differentiation. You don't get as much points for having drawn a correct nucleus as you get for actually having the naming right, the cell being in the right position. There's a very big differentiation. You get more points for actually drawing out a right size in scale and in magnification than you do actually naming the right parts. There's a big differentiation there. So, once again, if you have a global question about drawing, that's fine. If you have a specific question about your drawing and your grade, save that for later. Yes?
Is it also a point less if you put not, all the information, what you draw on the bottom, on the right, left, top?
Yeah, you don't get points if the names are on the left or in the top or in the wrong location. Yes?
So it's really just about the rules of drawing?
Yeah, this is
about what you saw?
Yeah, this is, for this drawing, it was mostly about rules because we're trying to get those correctly. Because in the future, no matter what you draw, you're going to draw all sorts of different things. From, you know, we practiced with the apple, which was just face first size, and you're going to work with the microscope. And you had to, we're also giving you bonus points because you had to make your own slide this time. So that's why we were, you know, made sure everyone had at least a 5.5. But for the future, it's important mostly that you're drawing, because that never changes. How you make the drawing, no matter what you're drawing, that always stays the same. That's very important to learn. Like naming on the right, information in the bottom, right scale, right magnification. That always stays. Those are rules you'll take along for the rest of your biological career, while you might never draw a plant cell again, for example. Yes?
Why get we 2 points? I don't understand it.
Once again, because we felt like this was a nice test to see how you did with drawing, and plus you made your own slide, had to get your own micro, set it all up. We thought for the entire total experience you have all learned, so you deserve bonus points or extra points, because if we would just give you grades purely based on the drawing and fully based on the rubric, a lot of people did not have sufficient grades, and we felt, seeing that you only have one small test plus this grade for this period, that would be too harsh. Because a lot of people would then have a failing grade for biology this term.
What means harsh? Like
Harsh means heavy, mean, strict. Yeah, it would be too rough, it would be too harsh, as they say.
Actually, it would be.
So does everyone now understand how a drawing should look? Yes, okay. Then I want to move on. Ms. Lochtenberg discussed, if I'm correct, chapter 1.4 and 1.5 with you? Yes. And you should have made the exercises. I also will not check if that's done. That's up to yourself. But next week, or the week after the break, you have an actual test. And the second point I want to get to is RTTI. Does anyone already know what RTTI stands for? Yes.
the R is for reproduction.
Yes.
The T is for
For
toepassen. 1 en
Yes.
toepassen 2.
Yes.
En nu ben ik inzicht.
Inzicht. Right. So, those are 4 types of questions that generally come on tests. In your first year, there will be mostly reproduction and T1 questions. So, there's a 1 here and a 2 here. And the higher you get, there will be more T2 and inzicht or insight questions, as they say. So, a reproduction question. What do you think a reproduction question is? Does anyone know? Ed, do you have any idea what a reproduction question would be? No, it's not something you have to look up, just think of it. What do you think a reproduction question is?
Reproduction. I think it is a. It's difficult.
Like, give an example. Like, if I would ask a question, yeah, for example, I show you a picture of an animal.
Yes.
That is obviously dead, it's a corpse animal, and I give the question, is this animal dead or alive?
Oh, a question where you already know the answer.
Pretty much. Reproduction questions are the questions that you just have to...
See.
Yeah, you just give information that you literally got out of your book, just have to write down. So it's like that small test that we had where I asked for definitions. That would be mostly reproduction questions, because I just literally asked, well, what is a cell wall? And then you give a definition. Or I give a definition, and then you say, oh, this is a cell wall, for example. That is just pure reproduction. Yes?
That's an answer where you don't can say yes or no.
Now, it doesn't have to be generally yes or no questions. Not necessarily, because it can also be that you have to fill in a definition, which isn't a yes or a no answer. But it is answers that are... There is always just like one possible answer. It's just, give me the right answer. So they're really easy to mark. So that's the problem. A lot of book tests tend to have mostly only reproduction questions, because it's super easy to grade. Because it's just, fill in, fill in, fill in. So, and books make very lazy tests. So, does anyone know what a T question would be? Can everyone give me an example of a T1 question? Yes.
Like in the test we just did last week, or this last week. Sorry. Toepassen is you have a scheme and you need to hold to that scheme because you need to do all those rules. That's the things.
Yeah. For a good example of toepassen, or as I say, you use knowledge or theory that you've learned to do something. So, for example, a question as make a schematical drawing of a plant cell, that would be a T question, because you know the rules how to make a drawing and you're using those set rules to answer a question. That would be a T1. You just get a basic answer. Or an example could be like, you get a bunch of examples of objects, and you would have to put them in either alive, dead, or non-living, based on, you have the knowledge to know what qualifies something being alive, qualifies as being dead, or qualifies as being non-living, and you use that knowledge to take a bunch of examples and put them in the right box. That would be a T1 question. Does anyone know what a T2 question would be then? Yes?
Something like you really have to do that.
The two question answers.
Yes?
Really sure. Is it like?
Ed and Diva, last warning. If you keep kicking each other, I'll see you this afternoon.
I'm not sure. Is it like you have to add rules?
A T2 question would be more you use your knowledge. For example, with math, you might know that to get a percentage of something, you want to know how big one part is of another. Say that you have a total of 100 marbles, and you have 36, you have 200 marbles, and you have 36 red marbles. How big is the percentage? How big is the percentage of red marbles of the total? Well, then you have this trick that you take the part, so you have 37, and you divide it through the total amount of marbles, which would be 200, and then you do it times 100 to get the percentage. That's a trick you might have learned basically in math. But then a T2 question would be a bunch of text like Johnny's walking and suddenly he drops his can of marbles. And so Anna's also walking around and she also has marbles, and her marbles mix. And now there's a bunch of marbles in all sorts of colors. The new total amount of marbles is 400, and there's 53 blue ones. How much are the blue ones of the, in total percentage, how many are blue marbles and how many are green, for example? You use the basic knowledge of knowing how to get a percentage, but you have to use it in a new situation you might have never seen before. Yes?
Probably it's the question, but what are marbles?
Marbles are knickers,
Oh.
for example. So the difference between T1 and T2 is T1 you use knowledge or skills, for example, skills in drawing or skills in getting a percentage in a similar situation you've always done, and T2 is in a new situation, but you can solve it with knowledge you've known before, but you might have never seen the example before. So it might be a completely new example, so you have to think a little further. And then the last question type, insight. Does anyone know what those questions are? Yes.
I thought, I'm not very sure, but it's like, just, yeah, like, basically thinking, like, what would you think this would be, kind of like, God, I had a really nice sentence for this, but it didn't work.
Kinda, in a way, do you have anything to add to it?
I need to take my answer.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Yes?
An open question?
They tend to be open questions, but open questions can also be a T1 or a T2 question. A real insight question is that you take all of your knowledge that you know about a certain subject of biology, for example, all of your knowledge on plant cells, and you get a completely new situation that you've never seen. So you might get a question: what would happen if you would crossbreed a fungus with a plant cell? Do you think the cell walls will be made out of cellulose, which plant cells are made of, or out of chitin, which fungus cell walls are made of? And then you have to explain why. So you use all of your knowledge to kind of come up with a plausible answer. So it's a real think question. You have to really use all of your brain, so to say. So those are generally the hardest questions, and those tend to be graded for the most points. So Ed, what is an insight question?
I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I was,
not paying attention.
yes.
So I'll see you after the 7th hour?
We have
6.
Yeah, that's not my issue. I'll see you after the 7th.
No, please.
Alright. That's the type of question. So on the test, the actual test you'll get for this chapter, there will be roughly 10% will be insight questions. So I advise you, when reading the chapters, to test yourself as well. Just try to take the knowledge that you find, for example, on 1.5 organ systems. There's a lot of different organ systems. You have to know all of them, for example, what they do, what they're all about.